The alarm bells screamed through the bridge of the peaceful explorer as sparks flew from control panels. Captain Veltar's 6 fingers danced desperately across the navigation console, but nothing responded. The ship's computer kept repeating the same terrifying message in its calm, emotionless voice. Critical system failure. Emergency landing protocol initiated. Destination: Sol 3. Warning: planet classified as Class Val Deathworld. Survival probability for crew: 0%. Veltar felt his 3 hearts racing as he looked at his 2 crew. Members Engineer Keltha was already unconscious from the stress, her pale blue skin turning an alarming shade of gray. Navigation Officer Zender clutched his safety harness with all 4 arms. His large eyes wide with terror. The Zenthari had explored thousands of worlds across the galaxy, but they had strict rules. Never land on Deathworlds, never attempt contact. With Class 12 planets, the gravity alone on Sol 3 was supposed to crush their delicate bone structure. The atmosphere was filled with a highly reactive gas called oxygen that could burn through their lung tissue. Even their databases warned that the planet experienced violent weather patterns and temperature swings that would kill most known life forms. But now they had no choice. The ship broke through the planet's atmosphere like a falling star at its hull, heating up 2 dangerous levels. Through the viewport, Veltar could see the Deathworld's surface rushing toward them. Strange rectangular structures dotted the landscape, and long black strips cut through green areas. Were those the ruins of some long-dead civilization who could have possibly lived on this nightmare planet? The impact came with a thunderous crash that shook the ground for miles. The peaceful explorer tore through what looked like a barrier, made of wooden posts and metal wire, finally coming to rest in a patch of the strange green ground covering. Emergency lights flickered inside the ship as smoke filled the air. Mike Patterson had been drinking his morning coffee on his back porch when the alien ship came screaming out of the sky. He watched it tear through his fence and crash into his backyard with the same calm expression he might have if a neighbor's dog had wandered into his garden. "Well, that's something you don't see every day," he muttered. Setting down his coffee mug, he walked over to the smoking wreckage, stepping carefully around the scattered fence posts. The ship was about the size of a school bus, made of some kind of silvery metal that seemed to shimmer in the morning sunlight. A section of the hull had cracked open during the crash, and Mike could hear weak moaning sounds coming from inside. "Beth," he called toward the house. "Grab the first aid kit. We got some folks hurt out here." His wife appeared in the doorway, still in her nurse's scrubs from her night shift at the hospital. Beth Patterson had seen everything in her 20s. Years of emergency medicine, from car accidents to heart attacks, but she had never treated aliens before. Still, injured was injured. "Jake, come help," she called to their 17-year-old son who was getting ready for school. Together, the 3 humans approached the crashed ship. Through the crack in the hull, they could see 3 figures slumped over what looked like control panels, were definitely not human. Their skin was pale blue, almost translucent, and they were much thinner than any person Mike had ever seen. They had too many arms, and their heads were larger than normal, with enormous eyes that took up most of their faces. "They're breathing," Beth said, kneeling down beside the opening, but barely. "Jake, help me get them out of there." Captain Veltar's vision was blurry as he felt strong hands lifting him from his seat. His translator device had been damaged in the crash, but it was still working enough for him to understand basic words. The creatures that had found them were speaking in gentle, reassuring tones. "Don't worry, you're safe now," the female was saying. Her voice was soft and calm, like she dealt with crashed alien ships every day. "We're going to take care of you." Veltar tried to focus his eyes on her face. She had brown fur on the top of her head and kind eyes. This was impossible. His people had studied Deathworlds for centuries. Nothing intelligent could survive on a Class 12 planet. The gravity should have crushed these beings into paste. Atmosphere should have poisoned them instantly. Yet here they were, not only alive, but apparently thriving. And instead of running in terror from crashed aliens, they were trying to help. Dr. Tom Reynolds pulled into the Patterson driveway exactly 53 minutes after Mike's phone call. The family doctor had delivered half the babies in town and patched up everyone from football players to ranchers. But this was definitely a first. He grabbed his medical bag and walked toward the house like he was making any other house call. "Morning, Mike," he said, stepping over the scattered fence pieces. "Beth mentioned we have some unusual patients today." Inside the living room, the three Xanthari were laid out on couches and blankets. Dr. Reynolds knelt beside Captain Veltar and began his examination with the same methodical approach he used for everyone. He checked their pulse, looked at their pupils with a small flashlight, and gently probed their injuries. "Interesting bone structure," he murmured to himself, as if he was commenting on the weather. "Beth, can you hand me the blood pressure cuff? Let's see how their circulation is doing." Captain Veltar watched in amazement as this human creature treated them like any other patient. The doctor's hands were steady and confident, showing no fear or hesitation. In the Galactic Confederation, first contact with a new species required months of preparation, specialized equipment, and teams of scientists. Here, a small-town doctor was checking their vital signs with tools that looked centuries old. "Sem's stable," Dr. Reynolds announced after his examination. "Dehydrated and shaken up, but nothing that rest and fluids won't fix. I'll check on them again tomorrow." As the doctor packed up his bag, Jake Patterson walked past carrying a twisted piece of metal that had broken off from the alien ship during the crash. The teenager was holding it in one hand like it weighed nothing, examining the strange patterns etched into its surface. Engineer Keltha's eyes went wide with terror. That piece of their hull was made from compressed titanium alloy, designed to withstand the vacuum of space. It weighed nearly 200 pounds and should have required a mechanical lift to move. Yet this young human was carrying it around like it was made of paper. "Mom, should I put this in the garage with the other pieces?" Jake asked casually. "That's fine, honey. Just be careful with the sharp edges," Beth replied from the kitchen. The three aliens exchanged horrified glances. Other pieces? What if their ship had this family already moved around like it was lightweight furniture? From the kitchen came wonderful smells that made Captain Veltar's stomach rumble despite his fear. Beth was preparing what she cheerfully called just a light snack for their guests. She hummed softly as she worked, completely at ease with the situation. "I'm making some soup and sandwiches," she announced. "Nothing too heavy since you're probably not feeling great after that crash." Keltha managed to activate her portable scanner and nearly fainted at the readings. The soup contained capsaicin levels that would be classified as a chemical weapon by most galactic species. The bread was made with processed grains that could cause severe allergic reactions in dozens of alien races. Even the water they were drinking contained mineral concentrations that would be toxic to half the Confederation. Yet the humans were consuming all of this without any protective equipment, treating it as normal food. "The gravity here," Keltha whispered to her captain, in their own language, hoping the humans couldn't understand. "It's crushing us, yet their offspring plays in it like it's nothing." Through the window, they could see 8-year-old Amy Patterson bouncing on a strange circular device in the backyard. Each time she landed, she was generating forces that would shatter Xanthari bones like glass. Her friend Connor from the house next door had joined her, and both children were laughing with pure joy as they launched themselves high into the air again and again. Amy shouted, bouncing so hard that she flew nearly 10 feet above the device before coming back down. Navigation. Officer Zender calculated the physics in his head and felt sick. The G-forces those children were experiencing for fun would kill most space travelers, yet they treated it as casual entertainment, their young bodies absorbing impacts that would hospitalize a grown Xanthari. The final shock came when Mike walked over to the windows and began opening them wide. "Let's get some fresh air in here," he said cheerfully. "It's nothing like a nice breeze to help folks feel better." Captain Veltar watched in dawning terror as the planet's corrosive atmosphere flowed freely into the room. The humans breathed it deeply, as if it was pleasant and refreshing. Their skins showed no signs of chemical burns. Their lungs didn't collapse from the toxic gas mixture. This wasn't survival against impossible odds. This wasn't a species barely hanging on in harsh conditions. These humans were living comfortably, even happily, in an environment that would be considered a torture chamber by the rest of the galaxy. They had evolved to thrive in conditions that killed everything else, and they didn't even realize how extraordinary that was. By noon, word had spread through the small town of Cedar Falls like wildfire. Mrs. Henderson from the post office had seen the smoke and called everyone on her contact list. Bobby Chen at the gas station had posted about it on social media. Even old Pete Thompson, who never talked to anyone, had knocked on 3 different doors to share the news about the space folks who crashed in the Patterson backyard. But instead of panic, fear, or calls to the military, something remarkable happened. The people of Cedar Falls did what small towns do best. They organized a potluck. Mayor Lisa Grant was the first to arrive, carrying a covered dish and wearing her biggest smile. She had been mayor for 12 years and had dealt with everything from budget crises to tornado warnings, but aliens were definitely a new one for her. "Beth, honey, I brought my famous chocolate chip cookies," she announced, walking right up to the front door like this was any other community gathering. "Figured our visitors might want to try some local specialties." Behind her came a steady stream of neighbors. Teacher Kevin Walsh carried his acoustic guitar case and a casserole dish. Librarian Nancy Rodriguez brought homemade bread and several books about Earth that she thought the aliens might find interesting. Even the teenagers showed up, curious and excited rather than afraid. The Zenthari watched from the living room window in growing disbelief. On any other world in the galaxy, the arrival of aliens would have triggered military responses, government lockdowns, and mass hysteria. Here, it had triggered a neighborhood barbecue. "I don't understand," Captain Veltar whispered to his crew. "Where are their warriors? Their scientists? Their government officials demanding to study us?" Engineer Keltha was frantically trying to send reports through their emergency beacon. But the words seemed inadequate to describe what they were witnessing. "Emergency log, day 1, she spoke into her recorder. The humans show no fear response to alien contact. Instead, they have initiated what appears to be a social gathering. They are bringing food offerings and musical instruments." Old Frank Martinez shuffled across the yard, his walker decorated with small American flags and his chest covered with military medals from 3 different wars. At 87 years old, he had seen plenty of tough times, and he was curious to hear what kind of troubles these space visitors had faced. "Heard you boys had a rough landing," he said to Captain Veltar, settling into a lawn chair someone had brought over. "I was in Vietnam back in '68. Helicopter went down in the jungle. Took us 3 days to get rescued. Nothing like a good crash to make you appreciate solid ground. Am I right?" The captain stared at this elderly human who was casually comparing their interstellar emergency to his own wartime experiences. Frank had survived combat in one of Earth's conflicts and was treating it. It's like just another story to share with new friends. Meanwhile, Mike and several other men had started up the barbecue grill, filling the air with smoke and the smell of cooking meat. The Zenthari watched in horror as the humans stood around open flames, laughing and talking as if they weren't engaged in one of the most dangerous activities imaginable. "They're cooking with fire," Navigation Officer Zender reported to the beacon. "Actual combustion in the open air. And they're doing it recreationally." The children were the most fascinating and terrifying of all. Amy Patterson and her friends had formed a circle around the crashed ship, examining every detail with the fearless curiosity that only human children possessed. "Can we go inside?" 10-year-old Dylan Rodriguez asked excitedly. "Is there like a control room and everything?" Captain Veltar had to explain, through his damaged translator, that the ship's interior would kill them instantly. The radiation alone from their power systems would be lethal to human physiology. He expected them to back away in fear. Instead, the children looked disappointed. "Oh, that's too bad," Amy said sadly. "It looks so cool in there. Maybe when you fix the dangerous parts, you can give us a tour." The adults weren't much better. They gathered around the ship like it was an interesting piece of art, discussing its design and asking technical questions that showed they weren't afraid, just curious. Several people pulled out their phones to take pictures, treating the first alien contact in human history like a tourist attraction. "You know, we should probably organize a fundraiser," suggested Janet Walsh, Kevin's wife. "Help these folks get back on their feet, or whatever they have instead of feet." "Great idea," agreed Mayor Grant. "We could do a car wash, maybe a bake sale. How much do you think spaceship parts cost these days?" The Zenthari crew exchanged glances of pure terror. These humans lived on a planet that would kill most galactic species within minutes. They consumed poison for fun, exercised to deliberately stress their bodies, and gathered around open flames for social bonding. Now they wanted to help fix an alien spaceship through community fundraising. Captain Veltar realized they weren't just dealing with a species that had evolved on a death world. They were dealing with a species that had turned living on a death world into a form of casual hospitality as the sun set over Cedar Falls. The barbecue was still going strong. Humans were sharing food, telling stories, and making their alien visitors feel welcome with the same warmth they would show to any new neighbors who would move to town, even if those neighbors had fallen from the sky. 3 days after the crash, the first emergency transmission reached the outer edge of Xanthari space. Communications officer Ilksana was enjoying her routine night shift at deep space. Monitor Station 12 when her console exploded with activity. The distress signal was coming from the forbidden zone around Sol 3. The message made her blood run cold. Within hours, the transmission had reached the highest levels of the Galactic Confederation. Emergency meetings were called on 7 different worlds, as the reports from the crashed ship painted an increasingly terrifying picture of the creatures inhabiting the Death World. Admiral Vexron stood before the assembled council, his 4 arms trembling as he read directly from the transmission logs. "They call it hiking," he announced to the horrified gathering. "The humans voluntarily walk across irregular terrain, over rocks and through dangerous weather, purely for entertainment purposes. Our stranded crew reports that humans do this in conditions that would kill our finest soldiers within minutes." The council chamber erupted in panicked discussions. Representative Kurthel from the Peaceful Alliance demanded immediate action. "We must evacuate that crew before these humans realize what they found. A species that survives for fun on a Class 12 death world could conquer the entire galaxy." But Admiral Zaphis from the Explorer Corps disagreed. "Think about the opportunity here. If we could understand how they survive, how they've adapted to such impossible conditions, we could expand into sectors we've never dreamed of exploring." The debates raged for 3 full cycles. Some factions wanted to quarantine the entire Sol system, building a massive barrier to keep the humans contained. Others saw them as the ultimate weapon against the Confederation's enemies. A few optimistic voices suggested they might be natural allies, but they were quickly shouted down. "Listen to this report, Admiral," Dextrin continued, his voice shaking. "The humans consume a substance called coffee every morning. It contains enough stimulants to enhance combat performance in most species. They drink it casually, sometimes multiple times per day, while discussing ordinary activities." The council members gasped. Combat stimulants were strictly regulated across the galaxy, used only by elite military units in desperate situations. These humans were treating them like a casual beverage. "There's more," the Admiral continued. "They deliberately expose themselves to intense radiation from their star for something they call tanning. They consider this pleasurable. And their young ones engage in combat training they call sports, where they deliberately collide with each other at high speeds for entertainment." On Earth, the humans remained completely unaware that they had triggered the greatest crisis in galactic history. Mike Patterson had called in sick to work for the rest of the week, spending his time under the alien ship with a toolbox and a cheerful attitude. "Don't worry about it," he told Captain Veltar, who kept apologizing for the inconvenience. "I've fixed plenty of engines in my time. Can't be that different from a car, right? Just got to figure out which part goes where." The fact that Mike was treating their advanced interstellar vessel like a broken-down pickup truck should have been insulting. Instead, Captain Veltar found it oddly comforting. The human approached their incredibly complex technology with the same calm confidence he probably used to fix his lawnmower. Beth had become the unofficial coordinator for the repair effort. She had contacted Cedar Falls High School's science club. And now a dozen teenagers were spending their afternoons studying alien technology like it was an extra credit project. "Mrs. Patterson, look at these energy readings," said Alex Chen, holding up a device that would have required 3 years of specialized training for a Xanthari engineer to operate. "I think I figured out how their power coupling system works." Beth nodded approvingly, bringing the teenagers sandwiches, lemonade, while they casually solved engineering problems that had stumped galactic scientists for centuries. "You kids are so smart, she said proudly. Captain Veltar, would you like some more coffee? I made a fresh pot. The captain accepted the cup with trembling hands, knowing he was consuming what his people would consider a military-grade combat enhancement drug. Beth drank from her own cup like it was water, completely unaware that she was casually ingesting substances that could get her arrested on most civilized worlds. We just want to help you get home, Beth explained, settling into a chair beside him. That's what neighbors do for each other. Captain Veltar studied her face as she spoke. This human female, who could probably bench press a small spacecraft, who drank combat stimulants like morning juice, who lived comfortably in an environment that would kill most galactic species, was talking about neighborly kindness like it was the most natural thing in the world. Engineer Keltha had been listening to the conversation while monitoring their communications array. She sent another report to the emergency beacon, her voice filled with wonder rather than fear. Update for the Confederation Council, she transmitted. We have discovered something unprecedented. This species possesses capabilities that could destroy civilizations, yet they use their power exclusively for protection and assistance. They do not seek to conquer or dominate. They seek to help. Even us, complete strangers who crashed in their territory, are treated as welcomed guests. Navigation Officer Zender added his own observations to the transmission. The humans have organized their entire community around our repair mission. They are not studying us as specimens or threats. They're simply trying to help us fix our ship so we can return safely to our families. As the days passed, cosmic crisis continued to rage across 7 star systems, while the humans of Cedar Falls went about their daily lives, treating galactic history's most significant first contact like a neighborhood project that just needed a little teamwork to solve. Retress. 3 months had passed since the crash, and life in Cedar Falls had settled into a comfortable routine. The alien ship was almost fully repaired, thanks to Mike's mechanical skills and the high school science club's enthusiasm. Captain Veltar had learned to drink his coffee weak and actually enjoyed Beth's homemade cookies, though they still contained enough sugar to power a small Zenthari city. The morning everything changed started like any other. Captain Veltar was helping Mike adjust the ship's landing stabilizers when a bright flash lit up the sky. A sleek, unmanned probe descended slowly into the Patterson backyard, its hull gleaming with the official symbols of the Galactic Confederation. Well, looks like your ride's here, Mike said. Right. Wiping grease off his hands with a rag, the probe landed with barely a whisper, far more gracefully than the original crash. A holographic display activated, showing the image of Admiral Dexron in full ceremonial dress. His message was formal and official, but Captain Veltar could hear the nervousness in his voice. Greetings to the inhabitants of Sol 3, the Admiral began. After extensive deliberation, the Galactic Confederation extends an invitation to humanity to join our community of peaceful worlds. However, due to the unique environmental requirements of your species, all diplomatic meetings will be conducted aboard specially constructed space stations designed to contain your natural habitat. Captain Veltar burst into laughter, the first genuine laugh he'd had since arriving on Earth. The idea that his people were so terrified of normal human living conditions that they needed special containment facilities struck him as absolutely hilarious. What's so funny? Beth asked, bringing out a fresh pitcher of lemonade for everyone. They've classified your planet as a weapons-grade environment, Veltar explained, still chuckling. They're going to build special stations just so they can talk to you safely. Mike scratched his head thoughtfully as he read through the translated invitation on his tablet. It says here they want us to share our survival techniques with other species. Didn't realize changing a tire in the rain counted as special skills. The invitation went on to list dozens of human activities that the Confederation wanted to study. Apparently, things like jogging, swimming, eating spicy food, and working outdoors were considered superhuman feats of endurance by galactic standards. They want to know how we voluntarily subject ourselves to gravitational stress for recreational purposes, Beth read aloud. Think they're talking about Amy's trampoline? 8-year-old Amy, who had become the unofficial alien ambassador for her age group, bounced excitedly when she heard the news. Does this mean we get to meet more space people? Looks like it, her father replied. Though they'll probably need those special suits like Captain Veltar's friends. The friends he mentioned were 3 young Zenthari who had arrived on the supply probe. They were the first of what would become a regular exchange program between Earth and the Confederation. The young aliens were fascinated by human children, but needed specially constructed environmental suits to survive even in Cedar Falls. Mild climate, watching 10-year-old Dylan Rodriguez teach a Zenthari child how to throw a baseball while both wore protective gear became the perfect symbol of the new relationship between species. The human kids had to be extra gentle. What felt like a light toss to them could seriously injure their alien friends. The adults weren't much different. Beth had learned to prepare special meals that wouldn't poison their visitors, while the Zenthari scientists marveled at how she could casually handle ingredients that would be considered hazardous materials on their homeworlds. Dr. Reynolds became something of a celebrity in galactic medical circles after he successfully treated 17 different alien species using nothing but his small-town clinic and some creative thinking. Apparently, its ability to work without specialized equipment in hostile conditions made him a legend among Confederation doctors. The cultural exchange programs flourished over the following months. Human teachers learned to conduct classes via hologram for alien students who couldn't survive Earth's environment. Meanwhile, human students got to study subjects like interstellar navigation and multi-species biology from professors who had never imagined teaching Deathworld Inhabitants. The breakthrough moment came during a video conference between the Cedar Falls City Council and representatives from 12 different galactic species. Mayor Grant, wearing her best dress and sitting in the town hall that hadn't been renovated since 1987, was discussing trade agreements with beings from across the galaxy. "We'd be happy to share our agricultural techniques," she said pleasantly. "Our farmers have been dealing with severe weather and difficult soil conditions for generations. This might be useful for your frontier colonies." What she didn't mention was that severe weather included tornadoes, hailstorms, and temperature swings that would evacuate entire galactic settlements. The aliens listening to her casual description of farming on Earth were taking notes like she was revealing military secrets. The evening ended with an impromptu celebration in the Patterson backyard. 3 different species of aliens participated. Via hologram, while the humans gathered around the familiar barbecue grill, Beth raised her coffee mug, her 3rd cup of the day, which contained enough caffeine to hospitalize most galactic species. 2 new friends, she announced, and to the crazy idea that the universe is big enough for all of us. Captain Veltar raised his own cup, filled with a carefully formulated drink that wouldn't kill him but still let him participate in the human ritual of toasting. He looked around at the faces gathered in the backyard, human and alien, children and adults, all celebrating together, despite the fact they came from completely different worlds. These humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. Without leaving their own planet, without building armies or conquering territories, they had managed to make the entire universe feel like a smaller, friendlier neighborhood where everyone was welcome. They had conquered the galaxy's heart simply by being themselves.